Welcome to the Economy Magazine. I'm Benjamin John Alfares for the top economic reports. Today's show, Gazans aspire to rebuild pending a lasting peace between Hamas and Israel. And Alibaba gets ready to take on the world. First, the headlines. European Central Bank President Mario Draghi unexpectedly cut interest rates on Thursday to spur economic growth and combat low inflation. The ECB reduced all three of its main interest rates by 10 basis points. The benchmark rate is now 0.05% and the deposit rate is minus 0.2%. Additional options could include a purchase program for asset-backed securities or a larger program of quantitative easing that risks dividing policymakers. The UK's FTSE 100 share index continued to rally on Thursday after hitting a 14-year high as global central bank policy actions pushed equity prices higher. The UK index rose nearly 50 points to its highest level since December 1999. London share prices were lifted by exceptionally loose monetary policy and an economic rebound worldwide. Investor sentiment was also boosted by UK statistical revisions that showed the country's economy had performed better since 2008 than previously thought. The Bank of Japan on Thursday kept its policy on hold despite a dramatic slowdown in economic activity following a sales tax hike in April. The central bank's 9-member policy board reiterated that the world's third largest economy continues to recover moderately. The bank will continue its annual purchase of $572 billion in government bonds and other assets to boost liquidity and eradicate over a decade of deflation. But as additional tax burdens worth $80 billion weigh on household spending, the central bank's rosy growth projections remain elusive. German factory orders soared to a year high in July after weak demand in the second quarter contributed to an economic contraction. Orders rose 4.6% from June when they slid a revised 2.7%, the economy ministry in Berlin said on Thursday. Domestic manufacturing orders rose 1.7% in July from the previous month, while export orders surged 6.9%. German business confidence was weighed down by the sanctions war with Russia and tensions in the Middle East. The renminbi has risen to its highest level against the US dollar in almost 6 months as investors look past lingering concerns about the state of the Chinese economy. Small rise on Thursday took the Chinese currency to 6.138 against the dollar, its strongest since March 10th. Confidence in the renminbi has been boosted by China's strong trade performance. In July, the country posted a fresh record monthly surplus of $47.3 billion as exports soared. Overall, the renminbi remains the worst performing currency in Asia this year, having lost 1.3% against the dollar. Former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg will return as head of Bloomberg, the data and financial news company he founded in 1981. Bloomberg's outgoing CEO, Daniel Doktorov, became Bloomberg president in 2008 and CEO in July 2011. During that period, the company's revenues increased from $5.4 billion to more than $9 billion. Bloomberg started the company using a $10 million severance package he received after he was laid off following investment bank Salomon Brothers acquisition. Bloomberg, whose fortune is estimated at more than $32 billion, originally intended to focus on philanthropic efforts after leaving office in late 2013. As Hamas and Israel prepare to meet for ongoing peace talks in Cairo, the local airport that was destroyed during the Second Intifada in 2001 is a main issue. Now, 13 years and several wars later, Gazans hope a lasting peace between Hamas and Israel might allow for the airport to be reconstructed and serve as a gateway for growth.
Walking through the ruins of where they used to work, Anis and Wasim were air traffic controllers during the short existence of Gaza's airport.
This was the main entrance for the cars, and here was the parking area. This is the main building for travelers. This part was for departures, and this part for arrivals.
From the main passenger terminal to the VIP area, only traces of what used to be. Symbolically inaugurated in 1998 by Bill Clinton and late Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat during peace negotiations, the airport represented a step towards Palestinian sovereignty. But hope faded fast. Israel bombed the radar tower in 2001 during the second Palestinian uprising in Gaza. It has been closed ever since.
When you see this building and you see the ruins of Yasser Arafat International Airport, it brings tears to your eyes. It's painful, and you feel a sense of loss.
I remember here there was grass and gardens and roses and nice things. The window of my office was here.
The airport is regularly targeted by Israeli airstrikes, including during the latest offensive. These 50 days of fighting ended with a ceasefire agreement between Israel and the Palestinians. Further talks between the two sides are due to take place in Cairo, and the airport is a key demand.
Israel, the occupying forces, need to allow us the entry of these materials for that airport until the airport has been rebuilt as it was before it was targeted.
Today, there are only two ways out of Gaza for Palestinians, one through Israel, another through Egypt. But since the beginning of Israel's blockade of the enclave in 2006, residents face severe restrictions at both crossings. According to the UN, opening the airport would not only grant Gazans freedom of movement, but also boost the economy.
If they were able to, for instance, export textiles or woods, that would be a great opportunity for them to be able to shift this cargo on an airlift. I mean, it will be tremendously beneficial.
The airport is now home to young men looking for scrap metal to sell, as well as a different breed of visitor. Passengers won't return here until an agreement is reached to let Gazans make use of their skies again.
I-24 News editor Ruth Sinai joins us now for a discussion on social and economic mobility in Western countries. Ms. Sinai, thanks for joining us.
Sure, Benjamin, how are you?
Good. So where are we going with this mobility stuff?
Okay.
I mean, isn't the American dream true for everyone? Any immigrant that comes into America can just go up the ladder?
Right.
Is that true?
Yeah, you know, we talk often about immigration, you and I, and, you know, people trying to make a better life for themselves in the new country and so on. There's a bunch of research that's come out now in a book also called The Sun, S-O-N, also rises, right. Poor Hemingway, that basically indicates that social mobility is not all it's cracked out to be. The conclusions are somewhat pessimistic, very pessimistic. They're basically saying, look, you know, you can't examine social mobility according to 1, 2, 3 generations. You really have to go back, 300-400 years.
Whoa.
And when you do that, you find that very little has changed,
right.
Both in countries like the United States, which is an immigration country, and in countries like Sweden, where the population is fairly homogenic, and B, where today, it's one of the most equal countries. I mean, equality in Sweden is, one of the leading countries in the world. One particular research is really fascinating. What they did is they went to Sweden and they looked back at archives and they looked at the names of people in the Swedish nobility in the 17th and 18th century, talking again 300-400 years ago.
Okay.
Fast forward to tax records from 2010, and what they found is that the people who are in the highest tax brackets are the same family names as those people from 300-400 years ago who were the nobility. Now that which basically says that what you were born or what your ancestors or what genetics dictates is what will be.
That sounds very controversial. I mean, the genetics part of it certainly
very
does.
racist in a way, I guess. Yes, very sort of what's the word? Eugenic.
Yeah.
But
although you do see people, I mean, all over the world, in Africa, in Asia, also rising, obviously, to a certain level of wealth.
Yes, you do, and again, that's why I said, and this is what the researchers are saying to answering those claims that that you do see people in improving their lot and their children's lots and grandchildren.
Does this imply that people essentially are born with a certain genetically determined will to succeed?
Exactly. You put your finger on it. That is the claim of these researchers. Again, something that makes me feel very uncomfortable because it really, goes against the grain of, social mobility, of networking, things that we've come to think that are really, really important, that are going to help us get ahead in life.
Right.
And of course, essential fairness. I mean, you're saying, well, so if my 10 generations ago, if my whatever ancestor wasn't born to the right family, I don't stand a chance. It's kind of a sad conclusion.
I feel like there's lots more to say about this.
Totally.
Ritzi, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you. As Alibaba goes public next week, the international recognition provided through the upcoming IPO holds tremendous promise for the growing e-commerce giant. Daniel Roth has more.
Alibaba, China's massive e-commerce company, is set to launch its initial public offering as soon as September 8th, according to the Wall Street Journal, and hit the New York Stock Exchange for trading soon after. Analysts suggest that the company could raise more than Facebook's $16 billion, as much as $20 billion, making it the biggest IPO in years. The Tmall and Taobao marketplaces that Alibaba runs are centrally important for Chinese consumers, and the international recognition that this IPO may mark will be an important step for proprietors looking to connect with the world.
Our businesses will flourish after Alibaba goes public. It will become easier to trade domestically and internationally.
CNN reports that this would put the company's value at somewhere near $200 billion. The valuation makes sense given that the company announced a tripling of profits to $2 billion in the last quarter. Indeed, as people worldwide contend with hard economic realities, Alibaba's platform may be becoming a key source of income for working people.
Once you get used to it, after a while, you can do it from home. Some people take this on as a side business. They buy a laptop, open a shop, and look after it in their spare time.
As e-commerce becomes more and more ubiquitous throughout the world, China is already well ahead. Bloomberg reports that e-commerce transactions will reach nearly $3 trillion next year, up 80% from 2013, according to the Chinese government. In the end, Alibaba is a giant, and their initial public offering will see that giant grow.
And now for a look at other matters explored by reporters around the world in Media Watch. Daniel Roth.
How's it going?
Good. So what are we exploring today?
Well, today, I don't know if you've seen the news today, but already started across the U.S. these fast food strikes, striking for $15 minimum wage and kind of raising to a living wage. Business Week earlier this week actually touched on, though, a particular fast food chain in a particular city, Jimmy John's. In Middle America, where apparently they didn't want to give workers sick leave. So they didn't want to give them paid sick days. They said, if you go sick, you don't get paid. So the workers put up these posters saying, hey, customers, watch out. I hope you have a strong immune system, because some of the workers are probably sick because the company's not giving us a little snotty. Yes.
Yeah.
So they got fired. 6 workers got fired. Now, the National Labor Relations Board went and said, you can't do that, that's illegal.
Right.
And Jimmy John's has been trying to fight it, it's been back and forth, but at the end of the day, this is a case where a company didn't want to give sick days, something that is needs to be...
Very, very basic right.
Yeah, very basic right, especially in food services.
Sure.
So, it's interesting.
PR.
This is even before this week's strikes began, and we've seen these fast food strikes growing over the last year or so. And it just looks like it's getting bigger and bigger with cases like this, these particular cases of really terrible management.
Much as I like fast food, what else do we have here?
So Business Insider is talking about the leaked naked pictures. Not about the leaked naked pictures, but about some of the fear that that's creating for cloud users.
Right.
People are really nervous. I've found individuals tend to steer clear of using the cloud for important documents.
Right.
Companies have been a little more, corporate use has gone up. but individuals don't use it so much, and I don't think this is going to help. And so Business Week is talking about not only the nervousness that something like this creates, where people's private information is taken, in this case, a really disgusting way of infringing on people's privacy, but also that specifically the cloud for individuals isn't really taking off, and this isn't helping, but also that iCloud in particular isn't doing a very good job. They're charging much too much money for much too little.
See, that's a different issue. I was thinking, there's this counter argument made saying, oh, don't put your nude pictures on iCloud.
Right. Well, but then, that's a sort of, I saw a great counter to that. A guy said, well, it's kind of like saying, hey, man, those are nice shoes, and then tasing them and taking their shoes and saying you shouldn't have been wearing those shoes.
Right.
These are people's private things. It shouldn't be taken.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Daniel Roth. That's the end of this magazine. Thank you very much. Your daily source for economic and financial report. Join us again tomorrow and send us your comments.